Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Group C Losers Finals match between Tell Me Why and Feed. Feed is a team from Singapore. Meanwhile, Tell Me Why is the former Neolution Esports Thailand region. So this promises to be a very exciting match, and this is again the Group C stage. So keep in mind the top two teams from each groups will move on because this bracket is currently played in GSL format. But yep, they will be moving on to the playoff bracket, and shoutouts to GST, shoutouts to Gigabyte for putting on this monthly tournament for all of Southeast Asia to participate in as usual. But anyway, let's get right into the picks and bans. So far, this seems to be nothing out of the ordinary, as Tell Me Why gonna ban out the Bat Rider. Interesting decision to ban out the Bat Rider with their first ban instead of waiting for the second ban, but I mean, not really the biggest deal. It's likely that they're gonna get rid of the Wisp as well. You know, the side of Feed gonna get rid of the Nyx Assassin, and we're gonna have to see if they're gonna ban out something like a Treant Protector, or if the Southeast Asian scene doesn't really have that many tree. Well, I mean, I'm sure they have a lot of Treant players, but I don't know if they're as accustomed to the Treant pick as a lot of the Western teams. But they're gonna get rid of the Lifestealer, a very stable ban, makes a lot of sense. So currently in this professional metagame, it makes a lot of sense to get your offlaner in your first couple of picks, because offlane heroes are usually the most high in demand, and usually they can be banned out if people decide to do just that. So I expect both teams to try to at least secure one of their offlaners, or their offlane in general, with their opening two picks, as Tell Me Why going to take a bit of their time. I expect a Wisp ban, since Wisp has navigated his way to the Asian scene and has shown that he's extremely annoying to deal with in general. But no, Treant Protector will receive the ban, and we're going to have to see how the Feed responds. They're going to get the Darkseer, so I suppose Wisp will just not be picked or banned, as Darkseer v1 matchup. If the other team decides to run an aggressive Tron, he can pretty much handle himself against anybody he matches up against. He can do alright in a 1v3 matchup simply because he can go into the jungle and make up an early game deficit. And of course, you know he's a phenomenal teamfight presence. So Darkseer is a very stable choice, as it definitely opens up a lot of possibilities. This might open up a Jakiro pick as well, because Jakiro and Darkseer, of course, synergize so well. Jakiro is probably Darkseer's best friend as support, since the teamfight potential that those two dish out is absolutely scary. Meanwhile, Tell Me Why going to secure themselves the Shadow Demon, so they're going to get their support backline, a pretty versatile support to choose with their opening pick. This support has turned out recently in the Western scene in favor of other more powerful supports at this role, but if you want an extremely versatile support who can gank, who can scale well, and who can pretty much do it all, Shadow Demon is definitely one of your go-to heroes. And Tell Me Why going to secure themselves a Clockwork, so I guess that's going to be their offlane hero respectively. And Clockwork is a strong offlane hero in his own right, but he's not really as effective as a Darkseer because he can't really jungle as easy. So if he gets into a level deficit, it's really difficult for him to make it up. The good thing about Clockwork is that he doesn't need nearly as many items or as many levels as the Darkseer, so he doesn't really mind being in a level deficit. Although he still wants to get reasonably tank, and he still wants to get, of course, that crucial level 6 so he can get that hookshot online and start going in for those ganks. And instead of getting the Jakiro, it seems like Feed gonna secure themselves a Naga Siren, so they're gonna make sure their teamfight is as easy as possible to execute. You all know in TI2 the Song and Siren vacuum combination was among the best combinations in the entire game. And yeah, you can no longer vacuum in normal units, but still, with good enough communication, which I'm sure both teams do have, they will be able to use Song and Siren, then just time it out, and then cast the vacuum, and then that'll just be a really significant teamfight setup that can pretty much decimate all but the most practiced of teams without too much of a problem. You all Tell Me Why gonna ban out the Chen, so it seems like they're fearing a bit of early game pressure, but I really don't think Chen would have been the choice for Feed just because they have some mid game heroes. Naga Siren, she is a very strong laning carry in general. She doesn't really get that strong in the mid game outside of Riptide cast just because she doesn't have much damage. The base damage nerf really did hurt her, and her casting mission is quite long, so she needs quite a bit of items in order to function adequately. And meanwhile, Tell Me Why gonna get rid of the Puck as well. They're gonna get themselves a Dragonite for the middle lane, and that's a pretty strong mid lane option just because he's so dang tanky and is very hard to deal with. Meanwhile, Feed gonna immediately secure themselves a Visage. And this could be an indication that Feed might go for an aggressive tri lane. Again, Visage can function pretty well in a defensive tri lane, but I've got to imagine this is going to be a I mean, I don't know, it's hard to call because if you do run an aggressive China with Nagastar and Visage, you are giving up a lot of experience towards Clockwork that you might not otherwise get. But if you do run an aggressive China with Nagastar and Visage, then, I mean, anybody who Nagastar nets will most likely be in for a really, really bad time.
5 seconds remaining.
But yeah, tell me why going to get themselves a Dragonite. It's likely going to be mid-soul Dragonite. Look for that Shadow Blade rush because Shadow Blade is still extremely common in mid-soul Dragonites, and Shadow Blade is still a very strong item in Dragonite in general. But Darkseer does do pretty well against the Dragonite because keep in mind, once he gets level 16, Darkseer can use the illusion of the Frost Dragon form to just really go in and do a lot of disruption towards the team fight of Tell Me Why, because of course that Frost Dragon illusion will splash and it'll do an immense amount of slow. And if they're clumped up in a vacuum after being set up by a Song of Siren, that could potentially be a really, really deadly combination. So I'm liking Feed's draft a little bit more at this stage, but Tell Me Why has some very, very stable heroes. They have a lot of tankiness, and if Shadow Demon can get some gank parties going off into the middle lane, then Tell Me Why could take a huge advantage in the early stages. Now, Tell Me Why taking quite a bit of time, and the good thing about the draft so far for Tell Me Why is that a lot of strong mid laners that give Dragonite a lot of trouble have been removed from the pool. There are heroes like Templar Assassin who can function reasonable against Dragonite, but I mean, that's a bit risky. And Tell Me Why gonna go for a late game choice in the form of Spectre, a really interesting decision as Feed can immediately respond with the Weaver security choice. So this will likely be an aggressive challenge being concocted by Feed with Nagastar and Visage. It might actually be a mid-soul Darkseer if he really needs to do it, or it could be a mid-soul Weaver. Both heroes can function reasonably well as a mid laner. Against a Dragonite, I do think it's hard to say who has the advantage up against Dragonite between Darkseer and Weaver. By the way, this is going to be a bit of a blessing for Clockwork as now he'll be able to get a lot of experience. Still, the best way to go about challenging Spectre is in the laning phase before she really becomes a huge problem. And right now, the heroes that that Feed have can do a number in terms of shutting down her farm because Nagastar, of course, does a lot of damage with Riptide, can hold Spectre in place with the net, and Visage, you all know his damage output in the Trial vs. Trial matchup is pretty much unrivaled.
Radiant team pick.
Tell Me Why going to secure themselves Lich for their last pick, and meanwhile, this is the part where people scream, aka Feed gonna get themselves a Jakiro, so they're gonna get themselves another support that does synergize very well with the Darkseer. So team fight versus team fight lineup. Feed's lineup is really, really scary, but Tell Me Why has a lot of tank ability, so they might just be able to survive the team fight engagement. And if the game does drag out to the late stages of the game, it's difficult to say who has the advantage, but it all depends on Feed's execution in the team fight setup. If they don't execute properly, then Tell Me Why should be able to just steamroll Feed in a engagement just because they're so tanky and have a lot of late game prowess. But still, the early game is where the lanes will really start coming into effect, and that will really determine how the game will go. If Spectre can receive some safe farm, then she should be able to get off to a good start. If she cannot, then look for her to not become a factor until around the 20-minute mark before she starts getting a lot of points in Desolate if she is forced into a dispersion build because of the aggressive trial lane. And Lich pick as the last choice, a really interesting decision by Tell Me Why. Now, I'm not too sure why they picked up this Lich. They could potentially put in the offlane if they don't want to have Clockwork in the offlane. They could also put it as support and try to deny as much experience as possible, but that's always a bit risky in a Trial vs. Trial matchup because, yeah, you are denying a lot of experience towards the Trial heroes, which is denying a huge amount because, I mean, there are 3 heroes who need experience on the aggressive Trial part. Meanwhile, only the carry really needs much experience because the other supports can pull. But it also will push the creep wave towards your tower, and heroes like Visage and Naga and Jakiro will punish you if the creeps are pushed towards your tower since they can just dive in recklessly, and these heroes have enough damage output that they can easily kill off the Spectre if she is out of position. So we're going to have to see what role Lich takes in this Trial vs. Trial matchup. Will he be a support, or will he go to the offlane where it's a bit more safe? Or maybe Tame My Wild, or not Tame My Wild, Tell Me Why will just choose to dodge a Trial matchup. Or maybe Sexus will decide to dodge a Trial matchup and instead go for a defensive Trial. But I think the obvious matchup for Feed is to get their Trial matchup up against Spectre, shut down Spectre in the early stages of the game because facing a Farm Spectre and a Dragonite with this team fight lineup is going to be very scary since they're so tank and they can withstand a lot of punishment, especially if Lich manages to get enough levels to get that Frost Armor en route, and that can really shut down a lot of damage being thrown or Tell Me Why's way. But yeah, if you're just joining me, this is the losers finals of Group C from the GEST July, or GST June rather. But introducing the players and the teams on the side of Feed from Singapore, we are going to have Mara playing the Nagasaki, Nameless is playing the Weaver, Europe is playing the Jakiro MLG22. I'm sure you want to add a 3 in there somewhere. Is playing the Darkseid, and PTM is playing the Visage. Meanwhile, on the side of Tell Me Why from Thailand, we're going to have Upper playing the Dragon Knight, Mutgore is playing the Clockwork, Nori is playing the Spectre, Stanin is playing the Shadow Demon, and Umaru is playing the Lich. And seems like Tell Me Why gonna dodge a Tron vs Tron matchup. Instead, they're gonna put the Dragon Knight up in the top lane, and you can see this Observer Ward being placed so aggressively will immediately spot out the Dragon Knight. And we're gonna have to see how the squadron of Feed respond to this switch in plans. But I like that Tell Me Why did adjust their lanes, because Spectre in a Tron vs Tron matchup would just get absolutely slammed. At least in a dual lane she'll be able to get some form of levels, and even if she might not get the best farm, she will have support backing her up most likely, and Shadow Demon is one of the better dual lane supports, and some early game harassment already being thrown out of Jakiro's way. Jakiro actually scaled up Dual Breath at level 1. Interesting decision, I guess, getting as much damage as possible. And because he'll most likely rotate in towards the middle lane, he doesn't really need the range of Ice Path as much. Still, Ice Path is the preferred skill to get at level 1 for a lot of Jakiro players in general. But Lich and Spectre middle, Lich will always be able to keep the creepy Golem her way, and because the paths that the towers take, or the creeps path to reinforce the tower is so much shorter, this tower won't really be in danger of getting pushed that easily. Meanwhile, Weaver and Visage up against the likes of Dragon Knight. Dragon Knight should be able to get off to a reasonable start, but I don't think he'll get too many CS, but I don't think the lane of Weaver and Visage can really kill the Dragon Knight by any circumstances, and Shaodian gonna get immediately pushed away. The Radiant did place a Centaur to block off this pulse spawn, as Dragon Knight gonna take a bit of harassment, so Shaodian is gonna find experience very hard to come by. You know, Darkseid versus Clockwork, Darkseid should have an advantage, but you can see he's taking a lot of harassment since the cogs were very nicely placed by Mutgore under the tower, really taking a lot of physical harassment from that tower, and Mutgore is forced to burn his salve. Still, it is going to be difficult for Clockwork to actually win this lane, just because he won't have any ways of clearing the creeps that easily without spamming that rocket. And you can see a surge forward onto Mutgore by the Darkseer. Mutgore is forced to burn the cogs once again, but you can see MLG22 still has 2 Claries to work with, and still has 2 Tangos, so he can regen up his lost mana as well as lost HP up to a reasonable degree. Meanwhile, it seems like the dual lane middle was abandoned for the Radiant. Instead, they're going to switch their try and chop, try to shut down the Dragon Knight instead of the Spectre. But this is going to be a great boon for the Spectre, as she is able to pick up a lot of free experience and a lot of free farm. And Dragon Knight, he wants farm, as Jakiro could potentially be in Launch. Disruption will be used, and here comes Dragon Tail to follow up shortly after, as actually the Illusions will get a slight block on. Will they even need to use the Dragon Tail? No, Shaodian does pick up the first one with the help of the Illusions, and once Spite will Shockwave from the Satyr Tormentor, gonna harass the Jakiro a little bit, so already this trial on top is not going very well whatsoever for the squadron of Feed, as Dragon Knight will take a lot of harassment, but again, he's so difficult to bring down, has 1 point of Dragon's Blade, and that increases his armor up to base 7, which is immense at this early stage of the game. But I do like that they rotated the mid support towards the top lane for the side of Feed, just because Nagasaki can function reasonably well as a solo mid, just because she has Riptide, and once she gets the ball, she can spam that nuke very effectively, and she will be able to get farm. And if they put support in the middle lane with the Nagasaki, then they would just be really starved for levels. But now they might be able to overcome some of the level gap, assuming, of course, the top child does not beat too hard, as Shaodian was able to pick up a kill on Jakiro. Seems like the Lucian blocks and Dragon Tail combination just really been ticking into effect for Tell Me Why. You know, Mara on the middle lane just seems to be ball crowing as best as possible. And you can see Spectre against the ball crow Nagasaki really can't function that well. Spectre does not make great usage of a bottle because, I mean, what spell would we spam? Spectral Dagger? Not really the best spell in the world to steal or to spam. But things are still going very well for Tell Me Why, since their top dual lane is winning quite hard. The Shadow Union has just been playing out of his mind with these illusion surrounds, and Nagasarn is now out of mana, so can't really spam the Riptide that effectively, although the bottle has now been delivered. And Shadow Union going to pick up a haste, and we'll see if he re-engages upon the top lane and really tries to get control of that, or if he'll try to win the mid lane back in favor of his Spectre. Spectre is still farming extremely well as Darkseer will pick up a solo kill against Lex Clockwork. Didn't expect that to happen, but I guess Clockwork just uses cogs once too many and was able to get killed off. And it's really important that the Darkseer does win his lane, as Nagasarn is going to go in for a bit of Riptide harass, and Spectre is just going to Spectral Dagger on out of there. And because you see Spectre is now completely out of mana. You know, Shadow Demon waiting in the wings. It seems like the Rain do know the Shadow Demon's there. Ice Path is going to land squarely on the Shadow Demon's face. It's going to be followed up by Dorbath. Here comes Weaver with the Shikuchi, and Visage with the Soul Assumption will be able to dodge. Oh my god. Still, in the end, even though he did dodge his Soul Assumption, was not able to secure his life. That's my bad, guys. I'll turn off the Steam notifications for now. You know, Dragon Knight gonna get trapped in an Ice Path. Fortunately for Visage, he doesn't have too many Soul Assumption charges, but you can see now that the lane has been pushed towards the tower. This very aggressive trialing can potentially dive in, although they just simply did not have enough damage to take the kill. You know, on the middle lane, seems like Spectre is still farming very well, although Nagasarn has been able to catch up, and she is doing a remarkable job. Seems like Mara has a solid grasp on playing Nagasarn mid lane, just sparing Riptide whenever possible, healing himself up to a full HP whenever possible as well, as Weaver does disconnect, so expect a pause to come in very, very soon. But yeah, Darkseer has been farming very well, and they really need the Darkseer to do pretty well in this defensive bottom lane, since even though the Nagasarn is functioning well, even though the trialing up top was able to secure a kill, so far I don't think they're doing a great job in terms of shutting down the farm of Spectre, nor are they doing a great job in terms of shutting down the farm of Dragon Knight. And yeah, you do have a really strong teamfight lineup, but those heroes just get so tanky that they might even be able to withstand the teamfight potential that the Rain do have. So the Darkseer needs to get going, he needs to get that fast mech online, maybe look for some early game engagements, try to get some points in a vacuum so he can set up some great early game ganks as well as some great early game chases. And so far, Darkseer, seems like he's not been able to get that much farm in comparison to Spectre. Only 25 of CS, so he is missing some last hits here and there, but the fact of the matter is that he was able to pick up the kill on the Clockwork, and now is a 2-level advantage, and Clockwork will really find it very difficult to stay in this lane. He does have the bottle as well as the salve. Unfortunately, I don't know if Darkseer will give him that much room to breathe once he starts saying those iron shells relentlessly, which he has already started to do. You know, back in the middle lane, Nori farming pretty well with the Spectre, picked up an early Ring of Health. Usually these days for a lot of traditional Spectres, whether it be Western or Eastern, people like to go phase drums and don't like to go for Vanguard, but I think in this middle lane, getting the Ring of Health on the Spectre was merited because she was taking a lot of punishment from the Nagasarn's Riptide harassment. And Spectre can definitely make great usage of the Vanguard. It does give her a lot of early game survivability and can allow her to preserve her life. I mean, it won't make her very offensive, so she can't really get that many Desolate ganks if she decides to go for the Vanguard route, but she can just be very difficult to gank in general once she does secure the Vanguard. So the item choice does make sense, and it could potentially work out if Tell Me Why does or are able to secure enough room for Spectre to farm up and make great usage of that Vanguard. You know, I saw Demon just consistently camping runes, just making it really difficult for the Nagasarn to rune control. But you can see Nagasarn just ball crowing it up, and double damage rune will be picked up on the Shadow Demon. You can see he's immediately maneuvering himself for a gank on the middle lane, and Nagasarn could be in for a rude awakening. Nagasarn not at level 6. Again, that Lich Dark Ritual, aka Sacrifice, just draining so much experience from the Nagasarn. Even though it's a soul versus dual lane matchup, she's not having that good of a time, and is in fact at the same level as the Spectre. You know, Clockwork can't do anything. Darkseer is just creep skipping, and there's honestly not too much Clockwork can do. As Ice Path will be cast on the top lane, Upper going to take a lot of punishment. I don't know if he'll die. Yeah, Visage not able to accumulate that many Soul Assumption charges. Meanwhile, in the middle lane, Seems like Xiaodin did roam in, but Lich is going to be in a lot of trouble himself. Lich will most likely get caught. Nagasiren has a very high base movement speed. Beautiful micro by the Nagasiren, using those illusions to the advantage, and was just able to dodge the gank. Phenomenal job being done by Mara on this middle lane, and has really been keeping his team in the game after a difficult start. And now with the Arcane Boots, it's going to be very difficult for him to actually run out of mana. And meanwhile, Xiaodin is spotted. The Radiant Ward was able to spot Xiaodin's positioning. Dual Breath will catch him. It's going to drop Ice as well as Fire. Visage going to rotate himself in. Does not have any solo summon charges currently, but here comes Weaver with the Shikuchi. Dragonite is level 6. Will he get the stun up onto the Weaver? He has not yet used Dragon Tail, but it seems like the Xiaodin will die nonetheless. Oh, he doesn't have any mana. That's why he can't cast the Dragon Tail. And seems like the Radiant have been able to recover from a bit of their poor start, and that's going to go a long way. Weaver just going to end his cruel existence, saying life is too hard, gonna give himself up towards the neutrals. And 13 seconds of being dead. I mean, he would have to go back to base anyway. You know, Clockwork was able to secure a kill on the Darkseer, so Darkseer, not having an adequate amount of regeneration to sustain himself in the lane, just cast lowering once too many and was killed off by Clockwork once he did manage to hit level 6, and that is getting a Clockwork right back in the game. But even though the offlane did give up a kill, the fact of the matter is that the Radiant were able to get a bit better of a grasp on the Tron vs Tron matchup, and they were able to get a kill at the melee matchup where they shouldn't really ever get a kill, especially in a 3v1 gank. So the Radiant looking okay. Still, they're not really shutting down the Spectre's farm, nor are they shutting down the Dragonite's farm, and that's what's really concerning for me. Spectre has the highest CS in the game, and she is going to make her way to whatever she does decide to go for. She has already finished the Vanguard, and that's going to make her extremely difficult to gank.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
You know, the Radiant don't have any wards on the bottom, so they won't spot the Lich picking up the Haster, but Clockwork was zoned out from the tower successfully by the Darkseer. We'll see if Darkseer can push on this tower successfully. He's almost at the mechanism, is going to secure about 600 gold. Meanwhile, Clockwork is going to come in with the Battery Assault, trying to get the Surge cast. Is he going to land the hook? No, the hook is just going to barely lift as Lich is going to rotate in with the Haste. Ice Path going to be used, Vacuum going to be used as well. Lich going to get picked off. Really, really nice timing by the Jakiro. Great placement of Vacuum. Keep in mind, level 2, level 3 Vacuum aren't really the best spells to land, but Lich just went way too close. Nagasiren is going to dive in for the Spectre. Spectre under a bit more duress than I'd anticipate, just taking sustained Riptide harassment. And meanwhile, back on the bottom lane, Dual Breath will be casting on Clockwork. Iron Shell will be used as well. Cog's going to zone out the Radiant side, but Radiant making a nice recovery, and they might be able to kill off this bomb tower. The creeps have now been completely demolished. The tower is not in deny range, so the Radiant do not have to dive in for that tower too aggressively.
Are fortified.
But the Dire in kind gonna rotate themselves top, applying a bit of pressure with that Elder Dragon form level 1, using that Corrosive Breath to apply additional poison damage towards that tower. And they will do a nice job in terms of bringing this tower down to below half HP on the back of one push without enemy creeps supporting them. But now it seems like Spectre has been zoned out of the middle lane effectively. Visage has actually rotated himself in. And you can see for the most part the Radiant supports are a bit underrolled, but the Dire supports are as well. And that can be attributed to the fact that they're always camping the runes, and they're really not been able to get any ganks going on recently. Darkseer will surge forward, trying to catch Clockwork off guard, but in the end they're just going to zone Clockwork out so they can get the tower last hit without the Clockwork being in contention for the deny. And Weaver, going to get caught under the guise of a Sentry Ward, will be killed off. So Weaver just playing a bit too aggressively. Should have probably noticed that the Shadow Demon used one Sentry Ward and ended up paying for it with his life, and that's going to give Dragonite a lot of gold. And this tower might fall. There is no gold for the Radiant, so this tower will definitely fall. We'll see who secures the last hit. The Dragonite is looking to do just that, but the Siege Dragon, just being so pesky, will actually get himself the last hit. Meanwhile, the Radiant supports are smoked up. Will they initiate on the Spectre? Ice Path gonna be used. Ice Path has such a long range that he's actually able to cast it within the smoke. Nori gonna be on trouble. He haunted away, but could not escape. Nagasiren was able to secure the last hit. And Mara is just playing out of his mind. Really nice play by this Nagasiren. Is gonna go for the drums and actually has a lot of CS in a mid lane versus dual lane matchup. And this tower likely to be killed off. Lich, will he get the deny? No, Nagasiren does secure the last hit. So a good exchange for the Radiant. Even though they did lose the top tower, they were able to kill the Spectre and were able to get a mid lane tower for their efforts. So really, really nice job thus far by the Radiant to get themselves back in the game after giving up a 2-0 deficit. Checking out the goal graph, you can see the Rain do have a sizable advantage, although definitely nothing that can't be overcome for the Dire. A bit of an experience advantage as well, but that's not really that significant. What is unfortunate for the Dire is that I don't know how their supports will get that much experience, as Darks are going to get caught. Will we get cogged as well? Will there be a rotation via Dire support as Darks is just going in, man fighting that Clockwork? Well, I suppose Clockwork isn't really a man, but Darks here, man versus machine, man will always triumph. You know, another sentry ward has been planted. Weaver could potentially be in a little bit of trouble, but he does have his ultimate online. Will time lapse away to safety and actually going to go back in on the Dragonite, recognizing the Dragonite does not have too much mana to play around with, although he does have the Soaring back online. And Shadow Demon going to be in for a world of hurt. He does have boots of speed, but Grave Chill is allowing the Visage to catch up very, very quickly, although, oh man, the creep's going to spawn at precisely the wrong time, going to zone out Visage, and Shadow Demon going to be very lucky to escape. You know, look what this Naga Siren is doing. Actually got 3 points in illusion just to bulk up his illusions as much as possible, as there's a foray on the top lane as Dragonite is going to be caught in Ice Path. Dual Breath will be used as well. Soul Assumption will be used shortly after. Going to dodge Soul Assumption once again. Nice timing on disruptions to dodge a lot of Soul Assumption damage. Dragonite still nonetheless does die. But yeah, I wanted to comment on this Naga Siren skill build. Instead of getting a couple else into Snare, instead maxing illusions. And with the Balco, you do have enough mana to sustain yourself, along with the Arcane Boot. So getting the illusions just to pressure Spectre incessantly with the physical illusion harassment as well as the Riptide harassment will just mean that Spectre is going to be in for a rude awakening, as Mara is able to set up a kill once again. Mara just, I'm really impressed with Mara's play, has been playing really well. And the surge forward onto the Naga Siren. The illusion's going to be micro to block off the Shoudian's retreat. Oh my god, Mara, you have made a new fan out of me as Naga Siren illusion's going to try to chase down the Shoudian. Oh, one more auto attack would have perhaps been able to secure the kill. But now Mara, as well as the Darkseer, will have to get themselves the heck out of there. And Dire going to have to send all 4 people towards the bottom lane to zone out the Naga Siren. All the while, in response, the top tower is getting pressured, so it seems like the side of Feed getting a lot of pressure going, and Jakiro is now hit level 6, not scaling macro power, instead of getting that 3rd point to Ice Path. Because macro power, I mean, at this stage, how much will it do? It'll do a lot, but only in a teamfight scenario, and it seems like neither team is too keen on teamfighting at this stage.
Dire's top tower has fallen.
Weaver has been able to pick up his farm by a slight degree. You can see he's died twice, but still been able to secure a decent amount of farm. He's picked up the Strength Treads as well as the Magic Wand to try to bulk him up as much as possible. Is going to go for the Lincoln Sphere route, I've got to imagine, to try to counter Disruption, Dragon Tail, and just give him a lot of mana to spam his ability, since he did not actually secure himself a bottle since he was in the mid lane and he was in a solo off lane, so might get a bottle. You know, Naga Siren, 19 gold in the bank, gonna secure himself a haste rune as Darkseer will search himself forward, has the mechanism finished, is now level 1, so that's 1 point to wall, as there will be initiation on Jakiro by the Dragonite, but here comes the full squadron of the Radiant support. Mechanism will help preserve Jakiro's life for now. I don't know if Jakiro actually took any brunt of the mechanism. Hall will come in from Spectre as they will kill off the Dragonite. Visage gonna be on trouble. Visage will probably die, but he's gonna pop the Magic Wand to preserve his life for a little bit longer. Shoudian will cast a defensive disruption on himself, but Darkseer and Weaver still have very healthy HP. Shoudian does get picked up. Clockwork gonna get killed off as well. Will they search forward to try to continue the pursuit on Spectre? No, Naga Siren will back off in the end. It's going to be a 3-for-2 exchange, 2 supports in exchange for a Dragonite, a Clockwork, and a Shoudian. Very much worth it for the Radiant. And now Lich, oh Lich, you're going to be in a lot of trouble taking a lot of Riptide harassment, going to get ensnared as well. And Naga Siren just running around in circles. Darkseer will secure the kill with the Ion Shell, and Radiant are starting to get their mid-game mojo rolling. And even though, yeah, Talonite does have a lot of tank ability, their early game presence is not that powerful until Lich gets a Chain Frost online. And Lich has not been able to get that level 6, so it's not looking good for the Dire. They just don't have much early game presence whatsoever. Even though I did think they laned it very cleverly as Nori's going to charge in, try and contest the Tower 9, but could be in for a rude awakening as the Bird's going to stun Nori in place. Nori, not too sure what you were thinking. Maybe you thought with the Vanguard you'd be immortal, but is taking a lot of damage from Vacuum and Ion Shell. The Cogs actually going to be used to trap Nori in place. Song Siren will help to secure the kill. Oh man, this Clockwork Cogs actually working against the side of the Dire. It's going to be a massacre as the Dire just gonna fall apart one by one. Shoudian will be the next one to fall, and this looks looking very grim for our friends from Thailand as the Singaporeans claiming control of this game. We're able to secure another kill. Dragonite will likely escape, but all the while
Dire's
Weaver
top
will be
tower
able to
has
kill off that
fallen.
top tower, and now it's looking pretty grim for the Dire. Down 16-7, a 9-kill deficit. And again, their mid-game at this point is not going to be that powerful, especially since they have just not been able to get any room to farm up. Which really needs a Chain Frost if the Dire have any hope of recovering for the next team fight. And he now finally gets a Chain Frost online. The 10 bounces definitely going to help out the damage output. But at this point, Darkseer, I've got to imagine he's building his way towards a pipe to try to counter that Lich to a certain extent. Visage already going to have the medallion, so the rating could potentially pick off Roshan very soon. And Jakiro just warning it up. Pretty much has everything he needs. He has the Arcane Boots, he has a Gauntlet of Strength, and his range just allows him to stay very far back as Dragonite going to take a bitter ass and should be okay in the end. Meanwhile, this Pesca Courier trying to... Ooh, seems like there was a haunt out by the Spectre, I suppose, as Ice Path will zone away the Shouting. Shouting is going to be a lot of trouble. Clockwork trying to drop a zoning cogs out of there as Purge will go down to the Visage. Visage will likely be in a lot of trouble, but it's still taking the Chain Frost will bounce, but it only bounce on neutral. Still can't have a lot of bounces. Darkseer going to receive one bounce as well. Meanwhile, the Lich gonna get himself picked off. Clockwork will potentially be in a lot of trouble. Gonna drop the cogs, but once again trapping himself in with the Naga Siren and an Ion Shell. Definitely not the way to go about it. Darkseer gonna get Dragon Tailed up. It seems like Rain gonna be in a bit of trouble as Dragonite as well as Spectre are able to pick up a lot of experience. Naga Siren should be okay as Weaver's gonna go back in. Ion Shell is still dropped on the Naga Siren, and that Ion Shell is doing actually a huge chunk of damage. The net will be cast on Dragonite once again. Reptide will lower Dragonite's armor, and Weaver is able to secure himself a mega kill. So in the end, that did favor the Radiant ever so slightly. I think it was a 3-for-2 or 4-for-2 engagement. 3-for-2 in the end, because Clockwork did survive. But still, the double carry on the side of the Radiant did manage to survive. And Darkseer, he is going to go for the pipe. The Radiant did lose the courier, which is a bit unfortunate. I don't know if it managed to deliver the medallion to the Visage. It looks like it was able to do just that, as the Illusion's going to get zoned out from the tower by the cogs. You know, Weaver gonna have that Lincoln Sphere up. Unfortunately, since the courier is dead, won't be able to secure the kill as Havoc is breaking loose. Lich just unable to get any warding going, and you notice he needs to place the ward since the Dire do, or the Radiant do have a medallion, and they can potentially go for Roshan whenever they please. You know, despite all this, Spectre is finding some semblance of farm. The Vanguard is allowing her to farm a bit more aggressively since he does have the HP to back up. I'm a bit surprised she still decided to max the Desolate because she is in such a defensive position, but I mean, Dispersion with just a Vanguard probably won't be enough damage to bring down any heroes on side range, so I guess this way Desolate will give her a bit of a chance of getting a kill, whereas Dispersion, yeah, it'll tank her up, but won't really give her any chances of getting kills. Darkseer gonna finish up the Hood, is getting very close to the pipe, should have in about 500 gold. And meanwhile, Weaver gonna have that Lincoln Sphere finish, gonna start making his way towards either a Desolator or an MKB most likely. Spectre gonna cast a dagger, trying to steal whatever CS possible. Naga Siren gonna go straight into a heart, trying to tank up as much as possible. Makes a lot of sense since she did decide to max out Illusion second, but there's gonna be initiation on Naga Siren. She can't cast Sleep. That casting point on the Sleep is so long. Some nice chain stuns will seal the fate of Naga Siren, and I don't think this Roshan can be claimed quickly enough, and you're gonna see the Radiant immediately escape on out of there. So a successful engagement being won by the Dire. Killing off that Naga Siren, delaying that heart for just a moment longer as, ooh, not sure what you're doing there, DK, but you are going to be surrounded, you are going to be pincered, and you can see the lack of vision on the side of the Dire really limiting them. Clockwork Rockets are pretty much the only way they can get some vision reliably. You know, checking out the goal graph, a 15k advantage for the Radiant, absolutely. And it's up. Pretty huge at this stage in the game. 20 minutes in, that is an absolutely critical advantage as Clockwork gonna get zoned out effectively. Clockwork did finish the mechanism at the very least. The Dire will be able to deward this Observer Ward with the Centaur that they were able to place, which was able to help scout the Roshan pit for the Radiant. But now the Radiant do know where the side of the Dire are. They're going to scout ahead with the Familiars, as Ice Path will just barely manage to clip the Spectre. Man, these Ice Paths have just been on point Unfortunately, the follow-up initiation was not there. The Nagasine was in position to follow up with the net, and without that, they couldn't really hold the Spectre in place. Meanwhile, Weaver just applying a lot of top pressure single-handedly, forcing a response by one of the heroes, and you can see that Lincoln Sphere just doing a lot of work will prevent him from being stunned by the Dragon Tail. And I'm not too sure why Nagasine isn't going in to Riptide the Roshan to reduce his armor. But May thinks the 3 supports are enough, and instead wants to get as much harm as possible with the split push and really prevent the Dire from zoning in, because if Nagasine is in the lane, he can potentially delay the Dire's approach with a Song of Siren if the Dire do get into a favorable position. See Clockwork actually getting the hook shot blocked by either the Familiars or the Illusion, as Haunt will go down, the Roshan will fall. Spectre actually picks it up, a huge victory for the Dire, as the Dire actually managed to claim Roshan as well, getting themselves a nice 10 gold. Will Spectre escape? Oh my god, Spectre will actually escape. She'll get the Roshan, and she'll get the last hit on the Roshan as well. Lich might actually die in the end. No, Lich is going to teleport on out of there. Rain, this is just suddenly turned to a disaster. Clockwork is the only one who will die, but the Rain just wasted so much time going in for Roshan, and they didn't get anything. All they got was a mere Clockwork, as Lever might be in a little bit of trouble. Going to be able to Shikuchi on out to safety, as Storm ticking on the Dragonite. Will we go back in for the Dragonite? No. Oh, here comes the Visage, but Lever just too low. One flame breath would be the end of him, and Dragonite did have enough mana to use just that. But unfortunately for the squadron of Tell Me Why, that Roshan engagement did drain away a lot of their HP, so they're going to receive a lot of pressure on this bottom tower's response. And Ice Path going to catch the Shadow Demon just barely. Shadow Demon will likely die, as he's going to cast the defensive destruction to preserve his life. Him into wall, going to trap everybody inside Dire, and these illusions will just go in, chip away the tower will likely fall, unless the Dire can be forced, but seems like the illusions are just continuously being created. Spectre still charging in, still has an Aegis online, has finished a Diffusal Blade, and then the Dire is starting to get a bit scary. Clockwork is getting denied the tier 3 in the end. I think it was probably one hit away from being last hit, so rather than let the Naga-Illusions get last hit, just instead denying a bit of extra gold towards the forces of the Radiant. And the Radiant, I don't know if they should actually push in. They're lacking Weaver, and they are facing Chain Frost, and they don't have the wall, but they're doing a lot of damage towards the barracks. Here comes the hook initiation by the Clockwork, going to trap the Jakiro. Jakiro can't cast anything. His casting animation is just too damn long, as keep in mind the barrier cell still goes through the likes of Sleep. And Jakiro's still taking a lot of damage, still dancing in place, can't get any Ice Path off. We'll get the Vacuum Ice Path off. Here comes the Pipe, but the Chain Frost still bouncing all over the place. Jakiro will be picked off, and now the Darkseer will be on the immediate retreat. Dragonite gonna morph into the Elder Dragon form, gonna pop the Shadow Blade, trying to increase the move speed. We'll be able to kill the Darkseer. Meanwhile, Clockwork is gonna fall towards the forces of the Rain. Here comes Weaver with the Iron Shot, doing a lot of extra damage. Nagasine's so damn difficult to bring down with that Heart of Tarrasque online, and Dragonite is gonna be forced to be driven away. Gonna pop that Soul Ring. I don't know why. He still had a healthy amount of mana pool, but is gonna get that Dragon Tail off. Meanwhile, Spectre was killed off since Jakiro did buy back Visage. Gonna get slain somewhere on the map, and meanwhile Spectre gonna get brought down immediately to half HP. The Ice Path actually gonna be able to cook the Spectre, but here comes the Demonic Purge onto the Nagasine. Surge will protect the Nagasine for now, as Darkseer is still charging forward very confidently. Jakiro, he might regret buying back in the end, as he's gonna get trapped in the cogs. Dragonite was killed off, and now Clockwork gonna help preserve the life of Spectre. Such a chaotic engagement. Meanwhile, Nagasine getting himself purged up, trying to teleport out to safety. Will be able to do just that. Ice Path gonna play on Spectre. Spectre might actually end up dying. He doesn't have buyback, as Shoudian will die. It seems like the Raid finally gonna come out ahead in this incredibly long teamfight engagement. Wow, what a sensational fight, but the Raid, just with their item advantage, will be able to pull out ahead, and man, what a way to end that game. Really, really exciting conclusion, as hopefully you enjoy that. I think this is a best of 3 series, or it could be a best of 1. I think the best of 3s are in the brackets, not in the groups. So hopefully you enjoyed that match, and meanwhile, the Rain are going to be very happy. They are going to move on to the bracket stage, as the last remnants of the Dire side will disconnect. Hopefully you enjoy that. This has been a presentation of the GEST June. Shoutouts to Dota Talk, Gigabyte, Western Digital, Corsair, all the sponsors for putting on this monthly tournament. Keep in mind they also run a Dota 1 tournament, so keeping the Dota 1 scene alive since people still decide to play it. I've been B-Ball. If you've enjoyed this cast, check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, B-Ball723. I put out daily Dota content on my YouTube. But wow, a really, really exciting conclusion. What a way to end the game. Hopefully you enjoyed that match. I certainly did. And the team from Singapore was able to overcome the team from Thailand in the end. So congrats to Feed, moving on towards the bracket stage. And they will be very happy in doing just that. But thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you all next time. Peace.